launch of our very own poet-in-residence, Will Alexander's new book, Divine Blue Light, for John Coltrane. We're thrilled to have Will with us here tonight. He's also here with Kamau Daáood. They're going to have a little bit of a conversation in just a moment. But before we get started, I just want to say a few words about Beyond Baroque. I'd like to begin by acknowledging our presence on the traditional and ancestral and unceded territory of the Gabrielina Tongva peoples. We acknowledge the wrong done to these peoples through settler colonialism, genocidal practices, and the violent dispossession of their land. As an arts organization, we are committed to uplifting indigenous writers, their narratives, their poetry, their stories, and their art. So a little bit about Beyond Baroque. We are very much a space and a community dedicated to the artistic possibilities of language, which is to say that we are very much a space for poets and writers. We've got writing workshops, including our free weekly Monday night fiction workshop and our Wednesday night poetry workshop. That's the second one's been running continuously since 1969. They're both online currently. We also have regular master classes, including a couple coming up in February. We have the poet Douglas Manuel teaching a workshop, and then a couple weeks after that, we have Julia Guess. Both of those are going to be great classes. So please do check out our website to sign up for those if you're interested. And we have ongoing readings and performances. In fact, this coming Friday, we have Eloise Klein-Healy and Ron Kirchie. And next Saturday, we're launching a new multimedia series called The Haircut that features poetry, music, film. Future editions might feature some performance art, all with sort of an experimental bent to it. One of the curators is here tonight, actually, Andrew Choate, has helped us out with the music side of things. So do come back for that. That will also feature actual haircuts. So if anybody needs a haircut, we will have a barber on site. If your hair is getting a little long, you can get a trim. Come before the show for that. And then following that in February, we have a book launch for Cynthia Dewey Oka. We're really excited about that. You can check all that out on our website. And I hope to see all of you soon. What we have even beyond readings, programs, workshops is a community. We very much depend on that community for the support of everything that we do. So if you are not a member of Beyond Baroque, I would really encourage everyone to consider becoming a member. It costs as little as $50 for an individual membership, $75 as a dual. You can see Catherine in the bookstore to purchase a membership. If you are a member, really thank you for your support. All that support has helped us survive the pandemic. It's helped us completely redo this theater. It's going to help us redo our patio for outdoor performances. So really, really thank you for your support. I should also say a few words of thanks just for everybody working on this program tonight. Jimmy Vega, Yvonne Salinas, Eric Alberg, Catherine King. Just a big round of applause for them because it takes a lot to run a center like this. This is really, as I said at the beginning, a very special program. Will has been our writer in residence for quite a while. I don't even know how long Will's been with us, but he is really one of the inspirations for everything that we do here as a poet, as a thinker, as a conversationalist. I like to say, I said it before in events with Will, that not to knock any of the other poets or artists that I deal with, but my absolute favorite part of the job is just getting to share an office with Will and to have a conversation with him on the regular. And it's been a really real honor to have been able to host him in events as our poet in residence, and just to watch him get an increasing amount of recognition. It's a double honor to have Kamau Daáood with us here tonight, who is himself an icon of Los Angeles poetry and a community builder as well. I'll say a few formal words about them in terms of their bio. So just to introduce both of them, Kamau Daáood is a poet, educator, and community arts activist, and is a native of Los Angeles. He was the artistic director of the World Stage in Los Angeles, which he founded with drum legend Billy Higgins, former member of the Watts Writers Workshop. He is the subject of an award-winning documentary, and he honed his skills as a word musician in the Pan-African People's Orchestra. He's also the author of The Language of Saxophones, which we have for sale here tonight. It's a great book. And then Will Alexander is a poet, novelist, playwright, philosopher, visual artist, and musician. He has published over 24 books in a variety of genres and has earned many honors and awards, including a Whiting Fellowship for Poetry, a California Arts Council Fellowship, Before Columbus Foundation American Book Award, and the 2016 Jackson Prize for Poetry. Among his publications are Refractive Africa, which was named a finalist for the 2022 Pulitzer Prize in Poetry, and won the California Book Award for Poetry, as well as The Combustion Cycle, Across the Vapor Gulf, and the Sri Lankan Loxodrome. His book, Compression and Purity, was volume 5 in the City Lights Spotlight Poetry Series. He is currently the poet in residence at Beyond Baroque in Venice, California, and has lived his entire life in Los Angeles. One of the things I think is true about Beyond Baroque and a place like the World Stage as well is it brings together writers and artists, and that is a really necessary ingredient for creative work, just to have that kind of inspiration, that kind of synergy, the kind of spark that you get from talking to other writers and artists. I'm proud of that at Beyond Baroque. I'm sure Kamau is very proud of it at the World Stage. But I will say, if you really want to know where things are happening in Los Angeles in terms of poetry and creative inspiration, it was probably 8th grade Horace Mann Junior High, which is where Will and Kamau met for the first time. I'm very curious about those conversations back in the day, so maybe we'll hear a little bit more about that. Please, everyone, welcome Will Alexander, Kamau Daáood.
Me and Will had pretty much talked, and basically, this is really an improvisational session. You know, it's a duet, and basically, we're just going to reflect through stories and through questions and through whatever, you know, and hopefully something will come from that you can carry with you. You know.
That's a good way to do it, because that way there are no parameters around the situation. We can always bring up new informational nuggets that we didn't even know we were going to come up with.
Yeah, I think that's really something with you. I mean, in terms of boundaries and it, you know, things that you know, ways of doing things and being, you know, space and how you. Yeah.
You're right. Living on an angle.
On an angle.
Live on an angle. You know, you don't live in a straight line. You just don't.
Mm-hmm.
My mind has never worked that way. I tried to train it so it would go straight on, but it doesn't. It won't do it, and I don't want it to do it any longer.
Yeah.
Never have, really, to be honest with you. But
yeah, this cat was saying that he was talking about this thing called conceptual incarceration, and how he was talking about how being conceptually incarcerated is the worst kind of incarceration there is, because you become your own jailer.
that's what habit is.
Yeah, habit.
Habit. It's a self-jailer, you know, routine. James Joyce had this story about the dead. People would just find themselves doing the same thing over and over again.
I don't want to cut you off.
No. Go ahead.
I just want to understand that a little bit deeper, you know, because how in the world, I won't say the word I was going to say, but how in the world could you pump out over 24 books without habit?
Well, there's a thing called a mantra. I do not think about a book. I really don't. A book just comes to me and I do it. And I learned a lot from, you know, Joan Miro, the great Catalan painter, how he'd have a ton of projects across the studios and different forms of formation, and he would add on to them as he just walked by. I think that's a good way to put it, because you don't carry the weight of a book on you. You don't carry your name on anything as such. You're almost anonymous, because you don't fall into a trap of yourself. You're talking about self-habit, but a trap of yourself where you just kind of flow out with the waves. And there's books I've done recently, within the past few years, I didn't even know that were in me. A lot of things I didn't know were in me. I just kind of, I wouldn't say stumbled along, but there's an African proverb, you know, to stumble is to go forward faster. So I was just going forward much faster. I'm going forward all the time. I stumble, but I keep moving. So the book, you just live where the books come and they just come and they just come and they come. And new ideas come about the books you were thinking you were going to write. You do that all the time naturally. So, the whole thing with writing plays, for instance. I've written a number of plays, and I never thought I'd do a play. That whole idea of not knowing what you're going to do is something that it just took its own life on. I heard some voices. I didn't prepare for anything, and I heard the voice, and it turned into another voice, two voices, and they became an ensemble, a two-person ensemble. The conduction, I think, it's called Conduction in the Catacombs. But the point is that these things are not planned. The plans I'm out is for me is too constrictive. Go ahead.
How I'm just asking questions in terms of, but what about Earth? What about the relationship? In terms of bills and gas and dinner and those kinds of things. When you are trying to always stay in the zone. I know what the zone is.
Yeah.
And you're trying to stay in the zone so you can hear these things that are coming to you. But at the same time, is it just fortune that or is it supposed to work that way, that you would find a living and find a way to sustain yourself? Because that's like them cats out in India in the streets, cross-legged, right there, and they in the zone and everything. But it's just like, but.
That's a good way of saying it, in a upper way, in a good way, how can you survive, and how do you have the desire to survive? It's very important. The way a bullfighter survives. For the most part, they don't get hit. Like the great poem that Garcia Lorca wrote on Ignacio Sanchez Mejia. He got knocked out by a bull in 1936. But this, for me, is just pulling the apron at the right way, pulling the redness, the red fire, the flag. And the balance in the ballet. Poetics is a ballet, too. You can translate the ballet into living, where it looks like you're not doing anything. But I remember Hermann Hesse said that he became invisible inside of this visibility inside his classroom. He was describing his invisibility. Nobody noticed he was there. It's way out invisibility. But, it's like the way the mammals survived, out of dinosaurs. They knew how to do it. They didn't get out there in front of the power, but they're like a great running back. 175 pounds, tough, bounce off people, gets up, gets sacked once in a while, but poetry's a long distance race.
So,
yeah.
So, I'm trying to it's like your work, I'm trying to connect the imagery, of the question about Earth and taking care of the things that you need to do to support your work and to support your life.
Yeah.
I'm still not. Maybe I'm just slow, but it's still not crystallizing for me. I'm gonna say this. That's the thing about the so-called abstract. So-called, for lack of, it's a very poor way of stating that, because it's so much more, in terms of that.
Yeah.
But in terms of how do we take that formlessness and make it useful on this plane? I mean, it's like, okay, I'm everywhere,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm reaching for everywhere, and I don't want to be tied to nothing, and I just want to exalt and infinite crescendos, you dig?
Yeah,
That's that kind of thing. But at the same token, how do I deal with what is around me? And it's almost like the spirit, like just pure spirit, and just not paying attention to matter, unless matter is hitting you upside the head, or unless matter is a bull coming at you that you got to be the cape and you dodging out the way.
Yeah.
I'm still trying to grasp that.
We study this music, and we know how. I'm reading this biography of Sonny, but Sonny Rollins, we all know these. We've been in the presence of all these great men. So Jackie McLean, Sonny Rollins, you name them. But how did they survive? Eric Dolphy, how did he survive? I don't think Eric ever worked a job.
You talking about a job?
No, he never did.
Okay.
He never did.
Mm-hmm.
And then when he got ready, I also one in a zillion. Chico pulled him out, told Ms. Dolphy, he says, it's all good. We're going to take care of him. And they said, okay, you can go.
Mm-hmm.
That was it. It was in that shed out there, literal shed, which I was exalted enough to walk into one day.
Mm.
And just look at the picture of Eric and Coleman Hawkins on the wall.
You met his mother?
Oh, yeah, we had a great conversation. Yeah. That was great. Now,
we're talking about Eric Dolphy,
yeah.
Great saxophonist, flautist, and bass clarinetist.
Yeah.
He was a protege of Train and so many other cats.
Oh, yeah.
Mingus
It was such a flurry in them days, man. People don't know Train and Eric were on the phone from 1954 right up till they got together in 61.
Mm-hmm.
61. But Eric was trying to help Train get out of his heroin habit.
Mm.
Good stuff, as Mingus says, Eric was always a good man.
Mm-hmm. Me and Shams a friend of ours, used to work at a graphic arts place. We used to lay out newspapers and stuff like that. But at lunchtime, we would walk over on Washington Boulevard to that cemetery over there.
Oh yeah,
where Eric is buried.
Oh yeah.
Man, it would be a trip. We go out there and by Eric's grave, man, and be sitting out there and then this bird, man, systematically used to come down there and put on concerts for us, man. It was incredible. Man.
That's amazing. That's amazing because what Eric used to do is one of the neighbors says he would go play with the birds. And if you know something about the birds, they have in-between notes. They're not this or that, but they're in between. And Dolphy was picking up those microseconds at that level.
The cat, on his grave is a staff of music, and there's some notes there. That was put there by Lester Robinson.
Great trombonist.
Yeah, great trombonist. And him and Eric were very best friends. And they used to tell us, how Eric used to, and Lester would get out there in the morning and watch the birds.
Yeah.
And the birds, like a lot of times the telephone poles would be like 5 lines, like a staff of music.
Yeah.
And the birds used to fly up there and they'd be playing that shit, as it come.
Yeah.
Man, that cast was out there. Lester be saying shit like, from the down to the toe jam, or close your eyes and read the writing on the wall, young blood. And we was kids, man. We was walking around them. A lot of them cats be nodding off, and we'd be sitting up meditating with our combat boots and military shit.
Yeah.
Man, it was incredible.
They always
shit. He said, flowers, the beauty of the booty, fertilizer. You know, I mean, you know, that's the way he used to talk. That's the way Lester used to talk to us, man.
Well, you know, we know this is vibration because having met the Dolphins and talked to them, and gave one of my readings down at St. Elmo's Village, and who was in the audience was Eric's first employer, Roy Porter.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So we were talking about things, So in other words, we get into this mix.
Man, in terms, I mean, just for us to be here, man, in our 70s, and have traveled all the way from South Central, so-called South Central, Horace Mann Junior High School,
right.
In gym class together. This cat was a excellent jumper. He couldn't outrun me now.
I have to disagree with that. No. I don't have those old records, but they were in the low fives for the 50-yard dash at that time. So.
Yeah, but just the beauty of that, Will. I mean, just to be here and then the whole next kind of time we spent a lot of time together. Was when we would hang over at Shams's house.
Oh, that was amazing. And we were in a incense collective. It was amazing, and it was 85th and Broadway.
85th and Broadway.
Yeah. We stayed in Grandma's house. She was amazing. We were born on the same date, but she was like this incredible lady, man. Was incredibly flexible, and we just hung out and did the incense, had stores.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, because, it was like, basically there was the house up front, there was a yard, and in the back there was a back house, and in the back house there was a piano.
That's right.
So all the cats that would come there were like, first of all, we all were unemployed. We had our ways of dealing with life and stuff like that. But this cat named Shams, saxophone player, whose grandmother had an incense business. So and this was, so all of us would go out there and pour all the different fragrances on the ground. They had these puck sticks or whatever like that you dipped into the oils, and you had to set them down, let them dry, and we had to bag them up and staple it and then at the end of the day we were paid with packages of incense that we would go out and had our way of getting rid of them for money. But the thing was, you had cats like K. Curtis Lau, the great poet, Ojenki, Will. We had musicians. I mean, like Patrice Rushen. She wouldn't do it. She might go in the back and practice on the music.
Sunship
Theus, great percussionist. Ernest Straughter, Sharp's brother. His brother that just died about 5 days ago, named Rasul Sadiq.
Yeah. Great trumpeter from Paris.
He came through the orchestra, Pan African People's Orchestra. He came through the AACM in Chicago, the Bag Group. And he was living. Last time I saw him was in Paris. He came and visited us when we were staying there. And I'm just saying is that all this you call it Gassim, Gassim Batimantu.
Yeah.
A lot of these names you would, you probably, who did these, what, but
some
these
interesting cats around there.
Spirits, great,
powerful,
spirit.
real powerful.
And then we would be out there in
the sun,
making the incense, and then cats be reciting poetry, cats be playing music. We be writing at the time. We cracking jokes. Oh man, it was just like it would. And Will called it in the writing somewhere. He called it a surrealistic beehive, which I guess that's what it was.
Yeah, it was a surrealistic hive. It was no rules. It was like that. Mm-hmm. The way my sensibility of the way that bats fly. Anybody ever seen bats fly in daylight?
Mm-mm.
Well, they fly off of sonar, so they don't go in a straight line.
Mm.
So, it's just natural for them. That's a natural balance point. So you got to find your natural balance point in life, So this balance point with Kamau and with Curtis and with everybody we talked about of the above and more. And more.
I kind of met my wife through that energy, 45 years.
Yeah. That one, and who else was there? We don't want to go through names.
Yeah.
But it was seminal beings. Let's put it like that. When we're talking about seminal beings, the poems I was going to read tonight are not cutting this off, but we'll go straight onto it. But these were little nuggets that I've been collecting over time. And as anybody that kind of knows me, I'm just always doing projects. My partner is Sheila. She's in the audience here. Sometimes it's just too much because I'm buzzing all the time. And I don't mean like I'm on something because my mind's buzzing. And Bob Kaufman says that poets work a 24-hour-a-day shift. Excuse me. So in this particular stuff, I won't read too much. We'll just pepper and talk and read a little bit here and there. This is from Divine Blue Light, but I gave a preface. I said these poems remain parallel to nanograms teeming as dazzling wattage. So a nanogram, and I give a little scientific little point here. This is all poetry to me. All these informational complexes of poetry. And a nanogram is a billionth of a gram. And 28 grams become an ounce. It's that small. It's very close to the invisible. So through science, I was trying to get to this level of the invisible. But the invisible, we know, is natural. It's part of the indigenous spirit. Anyway, I'll start off with a very small poem called A Blaze of Riddles. Because the sun exudes a blaze of riddles, there exists a haze of optimal osmosis, of protracted helium that bends via its forceless gruel, via its maniacal translocation to alien ravines, to other planes and possibilities anterior to the sense of chronicle as uninhabited or pure activity. These aren't popular poems, but it's a way of probing. You got to probe existence. You just can't live existence. People, certain beings do that way, but you got to live as a being for you, how you live, not the way somebody else is doing it. You can't copy anybody.
Train said something. He said, never play down to anyone. Never play down.
Mm-hmm.
Play what you feel.
Yeah, that's it.
And so much of us get bogged down into being locked into this box, a way of doing things, and we don't never get to the essence of what we could have gotten to because of the limitations that we placed upon ourselves. We think they're placed on us by something outside of ourselves, and to a certain degree it is. But much of the bottom line is what we place upon ourselves.
Agreed. Because the thing is, what alchemy is? It's not a science as such. It is, but it's a science of the self. It's the way you turn your energy and the way you work with yourself, kind of almost like the energy of a balance of a ballet artist. One gets to understand how to balance oneself in different contorted positions. But
do you have an audience? Do you have an audience that you direct your work to?
Oh.
I mean, your approach. I mean, because, like, well, I'll just let you.
No, and I learned the way to just listen to all the musicians we've heard, across time and space. That audience is way out. I was listening to this informational complex from they used to do these jazz concerts in Russia. And they have thaws and they have times when they go very, very barren. But the fact is, this was a thaw when they let the Western energies in, and everybody was talking about Dolphy and Mingus. They were talking about Dolphy because that energy had gotten to that point. And poetry allows you to understand how to get into places that nobody else can get into. It's not it's open, but you got to know how to get into it. It's the key you got to open. It's not.
But again, personally, in your approach, do you have an audience that you direct your work towards, or you just put it out there?
The latter.
The latter.
I don't go for any audiences.
Mm-hmm.
Not and everything because you're not going for audiences. It creates magnetism, personal magnetism, or the work has magnetism. Let's put it like that. You don't have to think about. I don't even know who they are.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't. I just communicate electronically or otherwise. And,
I once read a proverb, African proverb, said the cat that chases two mice doesn't catch any. And I think when I look at my own life and creative practice, I've been trying to chase two mice for a long time. And you get better at it and better at it as you go. But I think if I would have been able to surrender, to my heart's desire, I can't say my heart's desire because my heart is in both places. But if I would have been able to surrender, it would have been a better this or better that. I mean, I'm okay with where I'm at, but I've never been able to let go. In terms of I see, I hear what you say, and I see their approach and how. But I mean, I got a wife of 45 years. I got 12 grandkids. I got 5 children. And pretty much, I've had to do all this to keep going. Because I guess I had a point. There was a point I could have made that decision, but that's why I was asking some of the questions earlier about. You hear me? I mean,
I'm hearing you, man. I'm hearing you.
That's why I was asking a lot of those questions on the personals, because those are things I wanted to know how you were able to maintain and because was it just chance that things start falling in place and this is was a almost it was right next door to the Pulitzer Prize, and it's just crazy, man,
This is poetry. I can only say it's magic. It's magic. It's existential. You circumstance where you can't combine and how things add up. Don't work like that. It's nonlinear. Put it like that. And to put nonlinearity into praxis is always dangerous. Let's put it like that. For everybody, there's always. We're thinking about a more conventional danger, but there's also existential danger. Wow. Way out stuff. And I say it's in that way because you don't look like, sometimes it looks like you're moving, or things are moving, and it's alchemy. It's slow, it's dangerous because it's chancy. You might not make it. And I've thought all the time I was not the one to make it. Because one of my friends that we both really closely knew, Joe Jeff, Should have been up here tonight. I used to see
Majid?
Majid Mahdi. Majid was one of the most brilliant persons I have ever known. We were like schooling each other, and we were like 18, 19 years old. He's an amazing cat. He just would know things. He was in the Red Guard Collective with
Yeah, I was going to talk about that.
yeah, with
Robert.
Robert and Wahanjuki. Yeah.
Yeah, these cats run around with red books in their back pockets, miles and tons of red books. And we have that history too, because I was in the Black Student Union and you were in the Black Student Alliance, right?
Yeah.
And then, seriously, we were trying to change the world and trying to make our communities better and defend our communities and all those kinds of things. To the point where there are people that we know that end up spending major years of their lives in jail, and many of them died. I know the cats that I grew up with, went to graduate from high school with, they were in that shootout with the police on Central Avenue with the Black Panther Party, Peaches and Wayne Farr. And that was the first time SWAT tried to do anything anyway, and they held SWAT off for all those hours until they ran out of bullets. But that's neither here nor there. I'm just saying that part of our lives. Coupled with the, like the music and the arts and the political thing. And you were out at UCLA, right?
Yeah, I was.
Yeah, and Majid was out there because he was working on his PhD. And you were, I remember when you was at US out at UCLA, you were studying this dude Aurobindo.
Oh, Sri Aurobindo, yeah. It's big presence in my,
because I remember you was really reading all his stuff. And Majid was so cool. He was working on his PhD, and this cat out at Cal State Northridge was teaching the music class, the black music classes out there, and he flipped, and he ended up being incarcerated for some very hideous stuff, and they needed to get somebody to take over the classes, and I'm about 29 years old. Majid hooked me up with that job.
Yeah.
I don't have an AA. Yeah. I got I got a PhD from SWU, Sidewalk University. Mm-hmm. But I taught out there for 4 years because of Majid. He hooked me up and they let me in there through eminence, so-called eminence.
Power.
Yeah.
Certain people have power.
Yeah.
And I had to, I've had to gain whatever power I have from the inside, because it's always a different kind of walk. Because I knew Majid growing up. I grew up, the original block, the first Watts riots came out of that street I lived on. And that's just the way it was. And this is not a situation where you're trying to make this up and show off for an audience and, people talking, but this is really true. And we had experiences.
What's so interesting is to come from those experiences and find your way to such an exalted language. I read your work for the music of it. And the music of thought of it, that kind of thing. In terms of making the logical connections and stuff like that. I have to listen to it like I'm listening to music. I read your work like I listen to music, and a lot of times it's very, I can't. A lot of times, just like I can't listen to everybody, when them cats back in the 70s when everybody was going, like that. There was a time, my youth, I loved it, and then the other stuff that was like very spatial and very out there and very soft and beautiful. But I see so much of that freedom in your work. and you know, and it just really has to do with what you prefer, or what relates to you. And I guess it goes back to audience. You know, in terms of that. I mean, you know, people will gravitate towards what they feel and what they need, or what they think they need. You know, but you know, I appreciate, you know, the fact that outside the box is freedom, inside the head are keys. The shackles that bind are the ones we accept. The heart, it truly has wings. You know.
That's the one. That's the one, because you need this understanding of a wider space in your mind.
Did you read us something, Will, man?
We don't want to keep you here too long, but this is, I'll say a shorter piece, and maybe I'll read the first part of the Coltrane book, poem I did here. This is called Oneric Liminal Memo. Facing terse, argumentative neural confrontation, poised against self-inflicting ozone, assaulted while living in my crazed silo of indifference, knowing its void to be magically elevated as resonant chimera, as if fire were to erupt from subconsistent mountain ranges, as erring, fabulous, knowing my figment to be nothing other than transactional scintillation. I was thinking about did I just mention that word synecdoche, the part for the whole, you know. It's like, you can read the whole poem, but I'm going to stir certain what I call osmosis up into your system. So what I'm going to do is...
Can I ask you a question?
Go for it, man.
I just want to know, do you sleep with the dictionary? or do you... That's Harriet Millen has a book about the poem about that. But do you sleep? You know, I mean, and do a lot of those words you create? Do you create those words, or though? I mean, because I mean, your vocabulary is just, you know, I mean, it's just incredible, man. In terms of you know, yeah. That's.
Well, you know, the whole thing is about how do you know words. Sometimes I have a mind where I get words and I make them up, but I found out that they are not made up, but they're in a dictionary. Or at other times they come and they're so close, I said, I can live with that. And it's like that, you know. It's just, I had a character that was some kind of mountaineer. He was an odd character in this volume I was writing. I think of his name, and Chim, I can't think of his name. But I made up this incredible Asian name. It was just an auditory name. And so in my plays, I do auditory stuff, you know, that the plays just come to me, man. Like, I did this thing on, an essay on a play called, what was her name? Charlotte. Mona and Charlene. They fit their certain kind of, and they were arguing about being like Jackie McLean types. And one was arguing, the older lady was arguing about sticking to the old pre-plantation roots psychologically. And the other one was, of course, going the way that Malcolm and we have other kinds of levels of understanding. So in other words, I am working now to get to this realm, and I stay in this realm. And this is a poem, a little part of a poem. I'll just read a couple parts of it. It's called Condone to Disappearance. It's for Fernando Pessoa. Anybody know Pessoa? Ever heard of him? Portuguese poet, incredible poet. Created this thing called heteronyms, what he did. And then another personality would invade his body, his psyche. And he wrote poems out of those invaded psyches. As sigil camouflaged by curious smoke and surcease. There remains your visage, enigmatic and crystal, remaining hidden within occult lingual ravines. At one level, it is known that your appellation is Fernando Pessoa, born 13 June 1888. Of course, there exists the perfunctory tables of your chronicle, loss of your natural father at 5, your mother's remarriage and new placement in Durban, then university stay, fueled by magnetic indifference, then life in rented rooms, then business letters translated from Portuguese to English and French, then criticism written in 1912, creative prose in 1913, and the following year, your poetry, the heteronyms, their powers, their conspicuous agendas, including Alberto Cairo, Ricardo Reyes, Alvaro de Campos. Then one brief romance, the limited publication, then death by cirrhosis of the liver, a capsule, an unleavened symmetry, a migratory transit events from my written realm as co-sensation. And why do I emphasize the migratory? Is it because you've always assumed kinetics that reveal ghosts emerging and re-emerging from Lisbon? Fernando, being figurative insularity, roaming a perch of invisible significance, retreating to an emblematic edge only to return as visual briefings, to emit perfection by scent, by confounding observation, lit from within by inner magnificence, your inner eye, a refracted body of diamonds that formed as an inner cyclonics is true and concussive blood form. Your poetic forces, grazing via scattered combustion, understanding the rankings of minerals, not unlike an imaginary ostrich on fire with its primeval thesis, understanding precursors, drafts, flowing from various forms with altering. Your personality, human microbial filtration as anonymous phantasmic shift of various lingual maturation, being high art ascender as itinerant breathing codes that range from susurrant of inaudible deafening.
That's beautiful, man.
So it's just always good about the music. Thank you. So we
Yeah, you know, it's been a journey. Man.
big journey, man.
It's been a journey, man. I'm so honored that, you know, I mean, to look back and, you know, we look back at this book and, you know, I mean, what are the chances that two dudes from Horseman Junior High School are going to be on the same press as Howell and Bob Kaufman and, you know, all these guys,
Yeah.
man. It's such an honor, man.
Yeah.
And then, you know, just that we, you know, have been able to travel that far.
Yeah, it's been magic, man. I just gave some harrowing.
And Will came by and borrowed some money and said he was going to pay me back on the 32nd of the month, and I ain't got that shit yet.
He knows how to rattle.
Second, you know.
He knows how to rattle cages, but it's great, man. I love to get them cages rattled, man, because we don't want to be too august and perfect. I was telling somebody in New York, I know this is not going to be a perfect reading. And I just told them that up front. That keeps the pressure off your life that way, you know.
Where has this work allowed you to travel in the world?
Ooh, not a terrible like a big plethora of stuff. But Berlin and Lisbon and Portugal and countryside of Portugal and things. A lot of interesting people over there. I've been painting with them and doing things, psychological. I still do. In fact, one of my boys was actually at the concert with Eric and Train.
Who's that?
In Amsterdam. His name is Rick Lena. He's a great painter, great ex-underwater diver. But anyway, it's a rich experience. We don't want to go through the whole list, but it's just something. Actually, I went to Pessoa's house. I read that. I went to his house in Lisbon. I walked through the streets and found it, and I stayed there for several hours so I could absorb the vibrational impact. So anyway, that's...
Yeah, you got to hip me to him. I ain't even hip to him, man.
Yeah, it's a lot of stuff. So now, go ahead.
No, I was just saying, because your influences are infinite, it seems. I know the music, of course. Man, all the music.
Oh yeah,
that we were drenched in.
Drenched in, man. Drenched in.
I remember in my neighborhood, man, the cats used to, the older cats used to sit down, pop us in the chest, and make us sit down and listen to it. Because we wanted to listen to Motown and stuff like that, and they said, "No, you gonna sit down and sit down. You're gonna sit down and you're gonna listen to this."
I was a different kind of situation. I popped myself in the chest. And you know what? And I did it in a psychic way, and there used to be some great jazz stations out here, man. God, incredible stuff, man. Incredible. The radio today is desiccated, but that period, with Tommy B and those Les Carter. But one night I'm listening, and I'm just a young kid. I'm looking at this, and he says, "Now we're gonna play Olé by John Coltrane." And I never got over that. I still play Olé, man. Man, it's a smoker. It comes out of the obviously a Spanish tradition. I don't have the name right in front of me, but it's from a song in Spain. And Train would do that. He would like the spiritual he would do. He would get it off. He got that off of the radio one day.
And the thing is that that's how, it used to open us up so much, because you pick up an album jacket and then all of a sudden, next thing you know, you're experiencing spirituality with what you thought was a jazz record.
Yes.
And then you're reading about the Love Supreme and what the hell is Om and Ascension and and all these kinds of things. And you young. We used to save our little money, so we can go to the record store, and buy this music, But that stuff, sitting with it, and internalizing it so much, and the love that we got from it, It was just,
it's like flowing all the time. Flowing all the time, And I would just listen. I was always interested in when I first heard it, was listening to Train Spiritual. And I couldn't wait till that would come out. You don't know when the guys were going to play it, but, I'd end up listening to the whole program, and everything else was great, too.
Talking about the radio, yeah.
Radio, you get a culture with some kind of substance in it. People can still...
Big change now, right?
Change now with the society has been totally commercialized. Not that we didn't already know this, but this has been going on for...
What about the technological thing? How do you deal with that, man? Are you engaged very much with the internet and all that kind of?
No, I'm not. But I do keep up enough to get my work out and get things in that makes sense in life, But the thing is, we're talking about the whole society now. We know the planetary society being caught up in a what I consider to be a downfall.
Hey Siri, pull up Will Alexander.
Well, it's there.
What would you like to know about Will Alexander? I'm just saying, like, this damn thing here. Will, man, this thing, it's like Yeah, I'm gonna start with an AA meeting for phone addicts, and because this thing is so attached, to
That's why they call it an attachment.
yeah, and that's right, and then give me a fish ball, and then like that dude that did that hideous thing of killing his wife.
Mm-hmm.
They just checked his phone and figured out that he was up in the middle of the night at 3, and they have a list of all the different stuff that he searched for. How when does the body start smelling? What's 10 ways to get rid of a body? It was a big long list of things. How do you clean up? What kind of supplies do you need to clean up? This shit was on his phone. This thing, everywhere you go, you carry this damn thing with you, and it knows where you are, whether it's turned on or not, and it's listening. And I want to throw it down, but I can't. I'm saying, it's just.
It's something like it's intertwined, because it's not like it's all bad. Because I do a lot of international correspondence, and I'm working with people in all parts of the globe, and this is a way of handling it.
Yeah, because we can't run around passing out flyers like we used to.
Can't pass out flyers,
mailing
letters, which is great. I love we depend on the post office, but the thing is to sometimes to get the mind going at a rapid rate. Sometimes you just got to put words down. I do put the words. I just like that.
You still use the typewriter?
I did. In that combustion cycle, that 600. That was the last book I did by actual hand. Go to libraries, check things out, pull off books off the shelf with the dictionaries.
Yeah, there's just something about, just like being off their radar, in terms of, I need to start this and do a book on media fasting and digital fasting and dieting, some kind of way, I'm sure it's done already. Hey, Siri, no. Will, read us one strong piece, man. You didn't read the Coltrane piece yet, did you?
No, I didn't. We want to read together. You want to read? I'll just go on.
If you, I'll tell you what. You can read yours, and I'll read my poem.
If you want to do that, if you want. Yeah, this was something. You know what? We've been talking about Coltrane for a long time, and forever, really. And this is honestly the first poem I've ever written on John Coltrane. It's called Divine Blue Light, Sudden, Ungraspable Nomadics. Not as phantom blending, not as phantom blinding.
John Coltrane was a freedom fighter.
But the soils of Mount Meru,
liberator of the spirit from the shackles of form.
As quantum, as perpetual.
John Coltrane was a freedom fighter.
As interdimensional kindling.
Liberator of the spirit from the shackle of form.
Its hemispheres colliding.
Expanding beyond the boundaries.
As bricolage.
Blow away decay.
As osmosis.
Stale forms collide with freshness.
Alive as sonic commentary. Phantoms.
Patterns of life. Woven sound and tapestry of meaning. Go ahead.
Understood into themselves as stratospheric particulates.
Ears chewing mind food.
Not merely as a tense foundational structure.
Life coming out of a saxophone.
As a pronoun to be levied as simple sonic ramification.
Shit and rainbows. Shit and rainbows.
You understood this to be in the infinity of your heart.
Raining, diamond water, emerald shade the lemongrass.
To be microscopic musical grammar.
Silver the wind, jasmine.
Not unlike phosphates.
Sapphire the black earth.
As a syntax of symmetry, resounding as an obverse mirroring of chords.
A flower in the moon's nappy hair.
Analogous to 16th notes.
Our God lives in the people and the stars swirling.
Rising and scattering of their own accord.
Gangster rainbows, rebel rainbows.
Much like the residue from diamonds that bake.
Raging rainbows coming out the lips of a horn's heart.
Not simply shrill supplication as noise.
Golden tongue of fire, inspire us higher.
But it's strange spectral realms of themselves.
Ears lick the airways, sensitive radars, searching the airways for truth.
Being sonic, blinding bodies.
Eyes peering into life, seeking justice, hands able and ready to serve a righteous cause.
That rise and loop and gather themselves on the other side of themselves.
Music, all is music. Music, life is music.
Not as artifact or translated murder, but as exploration summons.
The Most High is naked and frameless and whole.
So that the sonic never wizens by pursuing entangled osmosis as complex utopian turquoise.
Beyond time, filling space completely, our bodies holding breath.
And it was on this plane that you and Dolphy squared private comment into thrilling electrical prophecy.
Learning to harmonize with the changes.
That both forged and scrambled light.
Strengthen ourselves into polished beings.
So that amperage split apart and scattered.
Carrying the song more perfectly.
Across soil as interregnum.
Beautify movement, speech, and thought.
Being blizzards of grammar.
Watching our hands gather stars and scars.
Not merely emitted from bodies.
Discovering the beauty carved in silence.
But sound as hail from unknown wizardry that sired sonic thoughts and streams.
Experience the spasm of uncontrollable laughter.
Understanding such flow as transmuted acre.
To watch the children sleep in peace, to struggle to understand our mates.
That's good. You got it.
Well, this is that was pretty good for improvisational set, huh?
Yeah, that was great.
Yeah.
It feels always good to just not think about nothing. Just walk out empty. I'm waiting for the next jot. And I don't know when it's coming. So just go for it.
Yeah.
Be ready. Okay.
All right.
Oh, yeah, if you want to, yeah, go ahead.
No,
Bill.
it's cool.
Let's go.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi,
Hi.
my name is Janice, and I was wondering if each of you could talk about who you were when you were at Horace Mann, what kind of guys you each were.
Okay. Go ahead.
I'd say unlikely. It just, like a tree has to grow. It ain't going to be the same when it's a certain part of life, but it has to go from its beginnings. So everybody starts, and we were starting.
Yeah, I mean, I think both of us were kind of introvert, athletic, young, dumb, and never mind. But it just we were kids. I mean, basically dealing with the things that were passed on to us from our family, dealing with the world that we were living in, and with eyes wide open in terms of discovery. I mean, basically, I know myself personally, trying to find who I was in a sense of, confidence in terms of who I was. And I know when, like, I got in high school, it shifted when I had to do readings of projects and stuff like that. And when I started getting feedback from the work, and it gave me a sense of identity and a sense of, but when I was in junior high school, one of my friends, Carlos Harris, man, he had me reading Khalil Gibran in junior high school, and stuff like that, So I guess we were destined for difference.
Yeah, it's a great way of putting it, because we grew up in this neighborhood. At least at the beginning of my years, was really infamous street where my mother, rest her soul, she saved a second grade buddy of mine from getting hung literally in the street. She just broke through the crowd and saved everybody, saved the kid's life. And, people were like standing around waiting. This is the kind of environment that you evolve. You don't stay in them positions. Psychologically, you have to continue to grow, right? Got to grow. But growing is not easy. One still grows one's whole life. In fact, I'm reading a book on the great biography of Sonny Rollins. You should read it. Take a look at it. It's out. It's good. But it's about how you grow out of a circumstance. And his happened to be over in, Harlem. But 125th, but he's where he is today, and he's still with us. Mm-hmm. We've been in his presence. So, yeah. And I don't know if Will went through this, but I went through a heavy street period, in terms of, drugs and gambling and, and pool hall and, all that kind of stuff. And at a certain point, it was actually the consciousness movement and the black consciousness movement which actually saved me from that. I had friends that couldn't read. I had to go in the supermarket when their mama told them to get ammonia, and he had to do like this, until he found the ammonia. He knew the section it would be in, Donnie Woods, and he ended up being like a big time dope dealer, and Donnie came to my house when I was young and married, and he said, "Hey man, let me just have a little space in your garage. In your closet, just a little space, man. And I won't come over there, but once a month or something like that. And if you just let me keep that, I'll pay your rent every month. And I said, Donnie, man, I can't do that shit, man. I ain't bringing this shit around. Excuse me, all this stuff around my family. But I'm just saying that part of life, the music." The spirituality, the John Coltrane, the studying the Islam and studying the Sufis and studying the Indian and yoga teachers and living up and going back and forth to the Bodhi Tree bookstore, selling, forming a business where I would sell books to the Bodhi Tree, all kind of stuff like that. But all these different avenues, wow, that and there really are like creation just molding, shaping you and fashioning you and embedding these things within you, But anyway, I don't know if that answered your question. No, there's so much to talk about, There's certain things that we can all both pull from, but completely dissimilar. But, having been in the ambit of, walking down the street, most interesting night of mine, I consider, nothing happened. But who was it? It was 100 yards in front of me, Geronimo. And and he was telling me about lookouts he had. I'll never forget that. So, I thought that this may be it.
Geronimo, which Geronimo?
Brett.
Okay, because you're so spacey, man. I didn't know if you was talking about with Geronimo or Geronimo.
Oh no, this was the interesting time. Geronimo was interesting man. Yeah. I didn't know him. I didn't know anybody, but this is the kind of situation, the circumstances.
Was this before or after the imprisonment?
This is before.
Yeah, because like I went to Washington High School, and my best friend in Washington was Gregory Carter, which was Bunchy Carter's younger brother. And Bunchy was. Were you going to school then? But Bunchy Carter was started Black Panther Party in Los Angeles, and Bunchy was murdered at UCLA. Anyway. But I'm just, man, there's another question.
There's so much going on. We got a lot of stuff going on, but, it happens.
Back here. I was going to ask Kamau, Will, why did you guys become poets instead of musicians? I mean, you were so influenced by music, so why poetry? And how did growing up in, such a volatile time of the 60s, as volatile, but also as a great period for African American studies finally coming to the forefront. So how did that influence your books as well?
Well, for me, in terms of the music thing, I'm an original OG ADD cat. Discipline. That's the only reason I didn't make it. Actually become a musician, because I could do anything I wanted on paper. But as far as you have to learn your scales, you have to learn your notes, you have to learn how to read, you have to be consistent at your instrument, And I didn't have that. I could never find that kind of discipline, and there was nothing that would make me do that, So I play stuff, but it's very. Random and self-taught and all that kind of stuff, but that's the main reason, because I would have loved to be a musician, man.
Yeah, I thought of myself as being a piano player, but I wasn't going to happen. I play piano as well. We both play, but not for the same general reasons. But it's just like we're talking about the whole transmission of this energy right now. And my transmission of energy is we used to say in the community, is out the window there. It's what gets me. When I first started reading these books, I started figuring on this astronomy book. I was 9 years old, and at that time they just recently knew about the solar system, really. And this is primitive society. They call us, and this is a Russian cat calls it a stage. I think it's stage 4 or stage 1. It's on the lowest level of civilizations. Kardashev, the guy's name's Nikolai Kardashev, but he talks about this kind of thing. This is a low level of vibration. So to bring this level up to this high vibration is what life is about.
Yeah, I don't know if we answered your question, brother.
I probably didn't.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I got a simple but maybe really difficult question for you each. If you could describe the most magical musical moment you've ever experienced.
Go ahead.
I could not, man, because I've been in places with music that has. When I started a world stage down there, I'd be in there with Horace Tapscott and Billy Higgins, and so many of the masters would come through there, and sometimes I don't even think there's a roof over above our heads. It would just, literally, I'm talking about, it would just you'd be like Billy used to always talk about the zone. Oh man, I've been in the zone, man. I've been to had those moments and stuff like that, where and it's not like I can't even, I can't say this cat and this situation. I had a lot of those, man. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of those. I mean, standing up, having a, conversation with McCoy Tyner one night about the It Club, John T. McClain's It Club. Anybody know the It Club? The Train used to play there. Hank Mobley used to play there. Monk himself played there. But we were talking about the It Club and how John T. McClain was running numbers. And that's how we did have a great. McCoy wasn't a big talker, but he's an interesting man, very interesting powerhouse, and so we've been in these kind of contexts, all the time with different these different higher level skill beings, man, higher level skill beings. Art Blakey.
Yeah. I mean, like one example was like, Pharaoh Sanders. Pharaoh let us come and play with him. We could be, ringing bells and shakers and, sounds and stuff like that. I remember when I was in my early 20s and Pharaoh came to my house, and sat down on my piano and showed me chords on the piano, and just not just before he died, I did a concert with the band, playing those chords that Pharaoh, having the piano player play the chords and read this poem, Walking with the Pharaoh. But I'm just saying, and to spend time. And this is Pharaoh Sanders. He's, him and John Coltrane like this. You're just like, but to be around those kind of beings, and you can't help but rub it off on you. Billy used to say, you'll see. He said, you're gonna see it's all gonna come together at some point. And you're gonna see, and it's just like, whew, man.
That's powerful medicine because, myself and Kamau have spent some time literally with some of the masters. I can't say as much on my end as his, but me and spent a morning with one of the great flautist. He's unknown, Sulubika.
Oh man,
Monroe Jones, incredible player. My first book, he actually did the drawing for my first book. He did, and that's his drawing. We just did that, but with Sulubika, we hung out. We were able to hang out all day with Sonny Stitt. He said Sonny's way out. Because he would say, man, he talked like that double, triple talk. He said, you don't need this, man. You just got that horn, man. He says, I'll just play it anytime, and I'm better.
Yeah. I've been knowing Sulubika since we was, and these cats, like we say these names, and a lot of them will not resonate with you, because, there's the stage. There's the Hollywood, there's the dollar bill, and there are those that dwell in this spirit, and a lot of times their work is not to be on the stage and to do the records and all that kind of stuff. That wasn't their path, but in terms of beings that live on the earth, and there's so many of those. There are more of those than the ones that make the money and get the fame and the fortune. The cats that we respect as poets that you all may never know or never know of, and same thing with musicians. Of course. It's
We can go on and on about that, but this is the experience of every generation. One of the most famous, to me, intense books, and I loved it. I still do. It's The Letters of Joan Miro.
The letters of who?
Joan Miro, the Catalan painter. His letters. They did it into look it up on Ape. You may be able to find it. But it's amazing because of the wisdom you gather through the Odyssey. You don't just have knowledge, but you gather wisdom and understanding, not in a linear way, but in a cross-directional way. And that's the jazz is cross-directional. I mean, and these guys know you. You know, I walk up to Roy Haynes one night, and I had great conversations with people like John Lewis. Just unbelievable stuff, and you know, you get the energy. Anthony Braxton, things like that.
We have time for maybe
one more.
One more
Yeah,
question.
just keep talking. You guys keep talking.
Yeah. We're safe, man. That's okay.
Oh no. Let's go for that. Yeah.
All right, man. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We do have tickets for sale in the bookstore. I'm sure Will and Kamau both will be willing to sign. Please feel free to hang out, have some wine, some food, and continue the conversation. Thank you so much for coming.
Yeah.
Thank you. Hey, boss. Great job. Great job.